Hi guys, I'm Andy. Welcome back to Backpacking UK. If hiking, backpacking and wild camping are your thing, please hit that subscribe button because that's what this channel's all about. Right, today I've got some cracking cheap camping gear to show you. All of these items, cheap as chips, and they come from Amazon, so I'll put the links in the description for you. But these little bits of backpacking gear, some hopefully you've never seen before, didn't even know they exist. So I'm going to share them with you today, and they just enhance your experience. And the best thing is, it's just really cheap backpacking gear. So the first item of budget backpacking gear I've got to show you, these 8 magnets. 8 magnets, £8. Now what do you use them for? Now I don't know about you, but I get really frustrated with the doors on my tents. Quite often you just have one little fastening, sometimes like a bit of string or a bit of elastic or a toggle which never stays tied up, and the doors just either come undone or they drape, and it's really quite annoying. So these little magnets are absolutely great. They're really quite strong, and what you do, you just get your inner or your outer door, fasten it up, and these keep your door nicely tucked away so you can get in and out of your tent really easily. So next up is my little bit of ultralight backpacking gear. Now these are tiny little towels that weigh nothing. Now you get them in packs of 100 for I think £10. So you've got these tiny little discs, you just put them into water, and within a matter of seconds you've got yourself a little towel. Now we go through loads of these. Mark found these 2-3 years ago. We can't get enough of them. They're absolutely brilliant. So you get 100 of these for £10. So next up is my Sea to Summit long handled spork. It weighs just 11 grams. Now everyone should have a long handled spork. Why? Because if you're eating out of packet meals, what happens if you're using a regular size one? As you're eating, all the food all gets stuck round your hands. It's really not a nice feeling at all. Easily solved, long handled spork. And while we're on these, I keep seeing people making mistakes buying food. You can get these off Amazon as well. If you're doing a decent sized hike or backpacking trip, do not buy the regular sized packet meals. This is about 500 calories. That if you're burning a lot of calories, you're using up a lot of energy, this isn't going to touch the sides. These about 200 grams, about 1,000 calories. So they cost about, I don't know, maybe £3 more, but you get twice the amount of calories. So that's my top tip for you. Go large. And while we're talking about calories, many of my regulars will see that I do use these fuel protein porridge pots. The only bad thing with those is, again, I think they've got about 200 calories with them. These tent meals, and they are a bit more expensive, they're about £5 each, 800 calories each. 800. And again, I think these are like 200 grams as well. This is what you need to be taking with you if you're doing long hikes and big backpacking trips. You won't regret it. So next up are my foldable bottles. This is my GSI wine flask. So I like to have a bit of wine on the mountain. I do not want to take a bottle of wine with me. So I decant it into this wine flask, which hardly weighs anything at all, 750 ml. It's super light, super compact. Once you've had all your wine, you can just roll it up similarly to this and just stow it away. And while we're on that, I also use these foldable water bottles. This is a platypus one. I think it's similar sort of price, around about £15. This is a litre. So it's small, it's light, it's compact. It's great to stash in your backpack, and then when you get to a water source, you just fill it up, use your water and pack it back away. Now, there's a lot of people out there that have problems with water ingress with their tents. However, don't worry too much. You can buy these seam sealers. This is Gear Aid seam sealer, which I'd highly recommend because it really does work. These, again, I think they're just over £10, come with a little brush. The only thing you've got to be careful of is you've got to use the right seam sealant for your tent. For instance, if you use this one on a seal nylon tent, it won't stick, so it won't work. You need the proper one for your tent, but anyone can seam seal. Just get it done, and it just means your tent's not going to leak. So next up is my little tarp. I think this cost about £7 or £8. It's small, light, ultra compact. It's a brilliant bit of kit. Just stops your gear from getting wet. Nice and big. This is huge in a tiny little package. This is absolutely massive. Superb bit of kit. £8, just stops your gear from getting wet. Well worth it. Next up, off Amazon, you might have seen my video recently. This is my tiny little fire maple stove. Superb bits of kit. They're around about £15. You know, it's just, you can't go wrong with things like this. It's not the most efficient camping stove in the world, but it's just absolute beast. This is, it's superb bit of kit, ultralight, cheap bit of backpacking gear too. Next up, we've got first aid kit. Now, Life Systems do so many first aid kits, it's unbelievable. From your tiny weeny minimal first aid kits to the big mountain leader packs. Now, these range from sort of under a tenner through to quite expensive bigger bags, but I would highly recommend getting a Life Systems first aid kit. Have a look at which ones they do and find the one that's right for you. If you go in solo backpacking, please take a first aid kit. If you go in a group, only one of you needs to take a first aid kit, but just make sure you take one. Next up are my Stormproof Matches. Now, these are brilliant and they really do genuinely work in the wind. It's great to have them either to light your camping stove if it doesn't come with a little igniter, or for emergency uses as well. It's small, light, compact and pretty cheap too. Now, all my regulars will know I do like to keep quite clean when I'm out and about. One of my most used bits of backpacking gear is my little towel. Now, these are under a tenner, small, light, compact. Once again, I use these all the time, but it also means not only does it keep myself clean, but I also use it for like condensation on my tent, and also just if I'm washing things, I can just dry them off before I put them away back in my backpack. Now, I do like to be organised when I'm packing my backpack, and I love these little Osprey cubes. Now, this is obviously a more expensive one, but on Amazon you can get little packing cubes, much cheaper, and it just keeps all your gear together. So for instance, I'll have a little toiletries one, an electrical one, and a food one, and they're absolutely great. It just means I know exactly where everything is, and I don't need to get all my gear out just to find one item. So these are brilliant. These are they can be had for quite cheap money too. Next up is bulk buying disposable earplugs. Now, these ones I absolutely love. I've been using these for years and years, use them in my motorbikes as well. But they're great for camping. They're nice and soft. When you lay your head down on the pillow, you don't even hardly notice they're there. They don't dig into you. They're just really good. You buy a big bag of them like this, literally for just £3 off Amazon. Now, one of my pet hates with tents is when they don't supply you with enough guy lines. It's really, really annoying. And to be honest, the more expensive tent brands are quite often the worst ones for it. So you just got to suck it up. You've got to buy some extra guy lines. Quite often you've got to buy some extra tent pegs as well. Amazon's great for that. You can pick them up with the line lockers, cheap as chips. They really are. I'll put some of these in the description, as well as some aftermarket tent pegs as well. Again, some of the big brands have even got rubbish tent pegs, but you know, a few pound for some guy lines, a tenner for some tent pegs, all of a sudden you've got a tent that you can now take out in windy conditions, and it's going to stay nice and solid. And next up, some citronella candles. Now these are great for flies, for midges and mosquitoes. They absolutely hate these. Now these cost peanuts. You know, you could get like a bag of them for like £10. Just take one away with you, keep it just by your vestibule, stops the flies sort of getting in your tent. It's really, really annoying, and it's just going to make your trip so much more enjoyable, especially if you're camping near a water source. You don't want to be hassled from flies, midges and mosquitoes. So hopefully you've enjoyed my cheap camping gear videos. Hopefully you haven't seen some of these items before, but I highly recommend all of them. They're really good. Amazon's fantastic for picking up these little cool bits of backpacking gear. There's no doubt about that. And if you're a Prime customer, a lot of these are free next day delivery as well, which is absolutely great. So I'll put all the links to all these items in the description. Also, if you've got any other cool little bits of gear that you've bought from Amazon, stick them in the description, because I'd really like to have a nose at them myself. But hopefully I'll see you backpacking soon. Cheers.